Good morning, guys, and welcome back to the Everyday Home. I'm getting ready to go outside because I want to quickly check some of my plants outside. Sweater on. Last night's low was 16, so I kind of want to go out and check my strawberry plants and my garlic plants. I'd actually uncovered them last week. We had a day, I think, that got up to 75. So like I said in last week's video, we're kind of on the roller coaster of weather right now. So I want to go and check and make sure that my garlic did okay last night. I'm pretty sure it did because it's pretty deep down in the ground and that ground doesn't really freeze here, but I want to just double check it anyways. And I have a fun little thing to show you guys. Look it in here. We got a bucket full of chicks. It's actually a huge rubber tote that we use for a brooder box. But we have some baby chickies in here. And then I'm also hatching some eggs. These are some of our chickens' eggs. I didn't have very much. We are actually getting hardly any eggs right now. Our chickens, we only have about 5 laying chickens left. Unfortunately, we had a sickness run through the coop and we lost over 20 birds. We figured out what the sickness was and we have all of our laying chickens kind of isolated. So this year is the year that we have to redo our whole flock of chickens. So I had to go and buy eggs for the very first time last week. Our local dairy actually sells eggs, so I was able to go and get a huge flat of eggs for $5. But still, I haven't had to buy them in 6 years, so it was a weird experience for me. The chicken coop over there is a mobile chicken coop. So with our new flock, we are actually going to make a mobile coop, and we are going to run them on our back 6 acres and not have them in a stationary coop. I think, unfortunately, that is probably why they ended up getting sick, because they're in a stationary area and we can't really free range here. Whereas I'm thinking if we have them in a mobile coop out here with an electric fence, it might deter the hawks a little bit. Just try to keep them contained. I don't know. We're going to experiment and see. I am in the back garden now. It looks like my garlic did okay last night. This is all 3 rows of garlic. It's not looking super happy, but these will perk up and they'll be fine. And then my strawberries, they look like they did okay last night. Getting some new strawberry buds, which is awesome. I actually have to get out here and clean all of these beds up. This is where I put my tomatoes, and you can see that we have quite a bit of weeds that need to get pulled. This soil is somewhat pretty good soil, and these weeds should just, they should just pull out pretty easily. I'm not going to do this task today. I have a lot of work to get done, but they'll pull out pretty easy. Kind of wanted to get these beds cleared out this weekend because I really need to get my peas put in the ground. We have our onion plants coming next week, so I need to get those planted as well. It's crazy that we are already starting to plant stuff. It's so exciting. I love it. I think spring is actually my most favorite time of year. Just want to go over here and check some of my beds where I'm planning on putting my onions. Whew, that window is kind of cold though. So I'm going to put my onions in this bed. Looks like we have a couple garlics left over from last year. And onions are going to go in here. I just pulled a whole bunch of carrots out of that bed 2 days ago. So this bed is ready to go. And then this is a bed of spinach that I'm just kind of leaving because I think this spinach will all, see, it's even starting to bounce back over there. This spinach will all come back. So I'm just going to leave it. And we do have some weeds in here. We could pull out because these weeds don't need to be in here. Okay, getting distracted. It is really, really chilly out here because of that wind. So let's go inside. I'm curious what the temperature is. It is 36 with a feels like of 30. It's not that nice out. It's still very, very cold out there. But this week we are supposed to be getting back into the nice, warmer spring weather. Okay, there's your weather update for the video. Today I need to get a couple of little projects done. I have been craving bagels. So today we're gonna make some. So I have been doing a majority of my baked goods with freshly milled flour. Because I am short on time today and I don't feel like experimenting with a new recipe and new techniques, we're just gonna make a regular bagel using just an organic all-purpose flour. This is a recipe that I have made for many, many years. I know it tastes delicious. I know it turns out good. So we're just gonna stick to that. But we are gonna do one freshly milled recipe. I am craving some raisin oatmeal chocolate chip cookies. I don't know if I'm going to use the oatmeal or not because oatmeal tends to irritate my tummy a little bit. I don't know why. I am using a gluten-free oatmeal, but it still kind of bugs my tummy. I have in the last probably 3 or 4 videos done a recipe out of this cookbook. I cannot recommend this cookbook enough. It is so good. If you are just getting into milling your own flour, this recipe makes the transition so easy. Her recipes are amazing. Now I've definitely tweaked some of them a little bit. I like to make the recipe one time the way it's written in the cookbook, and then I put my little twist onto it. Things that I find will make the recipe a little bit better. Little notes in the cookbook just so that I know when I'm making the recipe again to do those modifications. I can't even do this recipe because I don't have soft butter. It says to take the butter out the night before. I didn't do that. I have 1 stick of softened butter. We might try to do the trick to soften up a second stick. So there's a little trick that you can do to make butter that you got out of the fridge still really cold. You can take some boiling water, put it into a glass cup, dump the water out of the cup, and then put the cup over top of the butter, and it's supposed to soften the butter. We might try that because I'm really craving these cookies. I don't know, bagels and cookies is what I'm craving. Probably not the best cravings to have. These cookies also use a lot of sugar. They use 1 cup of sugar. So we are going to try to make these with a coconut sugar instead. I have the hiccups right now. I'm hoping they go away. So I have a glass. I'm actually going to run this glass under some hot water first before I put boiling water in it because I don't want to put boiling water into this glass and then have the glass explode. I'm kind of trying to get this glass a little bit warmer because my house is a little bit chilly. And we are going to do this over the sink in case we have an explosion. And we are going to temper the water in and kind of swoosh it around like this to get the glass warm. We got our boiling water in the glass, just swoosh it around, dump the water out, and then we're going to immediately put the glass over top of the butter. Let's see if that works. We're actually not going to use this cookbook, even though I highly, highly recommend it. I do not want to have oatmeal in my cookies, but I am still craving a raisin cookie. I'm going to get some water because I cannot stop hiccuping. And if you drink water really fast and gulp it, it usually stops your hiccups because I'm having to repeat a lot of sentences for you guys. Let's see if that works. No. Nope, didn't work. Man. Okay, I think we might have success. Fingers crossed. All right, so I am going to still make a raisin cookie, but I am going to use AI to get the recipe. I know AI, it's not the best thing, but it is kind of good in a way. So I have a recipe to make a raisin cookie. I'm gonna just write down what it's telling me to do. It's very, very similar to the recipe in that cookbook. It is a freshly milled recipe. The only thing is it's not using oatmeal, which is perfect because I'm craving the raisin. I'm not craving the oatmeal. Oatmeal tends to not be the best for me. Okay, so it is a soft raisin cookie. And you know what? We should probably give this a try before I actually take the time and write the recipe down. Let's just try to make it first. All right, so plan of action is to get these bagels started first because they do need to rest for about an hour to rise. So we'll get those done first, and then we will get the cookies done. I'm going to use my overly big mixer. I still have my old KitchenAid mixer. I'm actually going to be gifting my old KitchenAid mixer to my daughter. It's upstairs in my attic right now, and it would be perfect to do this bagel recipe because it is not a really big batch of bagels. I wonder if I should actually double this recipe because then I can get some bagels in the freezer. We might double this because I have a big enough mixer now to double it. I am going to leave this recipe for you guys below. I don't have a linkable recipe for you, but I will just type out the quantities to do one batch of these bagels. It's a New York style bagel, and these things are amazing, amazing. I could even do a batch with raisins. What? I could make a cinnamon raisin bagel. I just looked at our butter and it looks like it's melting. It's getting soft. Probably shouldn't have lifted the lid up. We need to get some yeast ready in some warm water. So we're gonna use, the one recipe is 1 1/4 cup of warm water. I'm gonna add 2 of these. I am going to use an active dry yeast for this. We're gonna add 4 1/2 teaspoons of sugar to this. I am just using a organic evaporated cane juice. And I'm doubling this, right. And then we're gonna add 2 teaspoons or 4 teaspoons of this yeast. So what I do is I actually store my yeast in the freezer, and then I just take a little bit from the freezer and then just put it in this container, and I leave this in the fridge. I do not store any of my yeast at room temperature. It does go bad. If you have yeast, I would highly, highly recommend storing it in the fridge or even the freezer. I also have this stuff in my freezer. This is what I use to do my freshly milled sandwich bread. This is an instant yeast, and that is an instant active yeast. 2 are different. This you do not have to do this with. You don't have to bloom the yeast if you're using this kind. There's 2 different types. Regardless, both of them I keep in the freezer. So we are gonna wait for this to get bloomy and all foamy. That usually takes about 5 minutes. I wanna check my freezer and see if we have any already milled soft wheat. We do. We have this much, and this recipe, the cookie recipe calls for 2 1/2 cups of freshly milled soft wheat. I don't think that's gonna be enough. Let's see what other kinds we have in here. This is hard, so that's not gonna work. I don't have any other ones in here. We are gonna have to grind some wheat because I don't have any other wheat in my freezer. I love grinding my own wheat. It's just very satisfying. I wish I could grow wheat, but I'm not there in my journey. We're just gonna buy our wheat from Azure. I'm waiting for the airplane to come down from landing. This thing sounds so loud. Steven even says it. He says it sounds like an airplane turning off when it shuts off because it's very, very loud. Okay, so the recipe for the bagels actually says not to stir the yeast, but I noticed that I had a whole bunch of yeast clumping on top of this, so I stirred it anyways. I have one recipe that says to stir the yeast, and I have another one that says not to stir anything, just put it in here. I stirred it because I just felt it needed to get combined. Hopefully not mess that up. I usually do stir it. That yeast is not looking super happy. Normally it is bubbling by now, so hopefully that yeast isn't bad. If it is, we'll just use the stuff from the freezer. It's been in the fridge for a very long time because I've been just using freshly milled stuff, and I use a different type of yeast for that. So in the meantime, we'll just get our cookies done. Just kind of roll with it in the kitchen. Our yeast is actually getting activated. Took some ground beef out of the freezer. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it tonight. I'm gonna do something with ground beef. We've been eating chicken almost every single night because we are so low on our beef. Steven actually just talked to our beef farmer, and he said that the steer is actually not gonna be ready until the end of March. So we're really trying to stretch all of our beef stuff. I've been trying to use chicken and turkey for a lot of our meals, and we're kind of getting a little sick of it. So tonight I'm like, we're doing something with beef. I don't know what I'm gonna make with it yet, but I'll figure it out. So many different things you can do with ground beef. It's pretty easy to use. We're gonna use 2 1/2 cups of a freshly milled soft white wheat. Our yeast is happy. It's starting to bloom really good. So we'll probably leave it another 5 minutes because that'll definitely bloom a lot more. So we need 1 teaspoon of baking soda. My baking soda is super, super clumpy. So whenever I'm adding baking soda into something, I always use a little strainer or a sieve That way I don't get clumps of baking soda. The one time that I didn't do this, I had a huge clump of baking soda in my biscuits and it was disgusting. So I always do this. You just get the clumps out. 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. You know what? We're going to add a little cardamom also. Cardamom is one of my most favorite seasonings or spices. Glorious sound outside right now. We have a chicken laying an egg. So we went from having like 1 egg a day, like they were barely laying anything. And then yesterday I went out there, 5 eggs. Having to pay for eggs just was like such a humbling experience for me. Cardamom. I love the taste of cardamom. Probably why I love chai also, because it has cardamom in it, or at least I put cardamom in my chai. We're probably going to use about half a teaspoon of cardamom in this. You don't have to use this. I just love this flavor. We need to add some salt in here, and we need to add half a teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to whisk this together and get all of these spices combined with the flour. And then we're going to set this aside and get our wet ingredients combined. Hopefully our butter is soft enough. Ooh, that smells good. We need to get our hand mixer. And I always put these things in before I plug this thing in. All right, so we need 1 cup of butter, so 2 sticks of butter. Did our cup trick work? It's still kind of chilled, so I'm going to throw this in the microwave for about 10 seconds. If it melts a little bit, that's okay. It is definitely softer, but it's not room temperature. There we go. To be honest, the one that's at room temperature isn't in the best either because my house is kind of chilly right now. All right, and we're going to use coconut sugar for this recipe, and we are going to use 1.5 cups of coconut sugar. It's kind of clumpy. Coconut sugar is very similar to brown sugar. It's going to give it like a caramel taste to it, but it also tends to harden like brown sugar does. I keep a little bear in here to kind of keep it somewhat moist, but the sugar is actually sticking to the bear. So we need 1.5 cups of this sugar. I love the smell of coconut sugar. There's 1 cup. I am making a huge mess. You could also use honey in this. You could use a stevia replacement for this as well. You do not have to use coconut sugar. Or you could just use regular brown sugar and white sugar. I believe what you would use is 1 cup of brown sugar and half a cup of white sugar. All right, so we're gonna beat this. It's probably gonna take about 5 minutes to get this fluffy. Now this will not get as fluffy as it would if we were using a white sugar because we're using a coconut sugar in this. We're just looking for it to get combined and creamy. Bigger bowl would have been a good idea. And this is probably not very good because this butter isn't very soft. Oh no. We got a big mess with this. Kind of mixing it a little bit slower than normal to get some of this butter combined. I need a bigger bowl. Definitely try to have your butter a lot more softer than mine. Okay, let's scrape down the bowl a little bit. Okay, that is looking pretty fluffy. Think about as fluffy as we're gonna get it. All right, we're gonna use 2 eggs, and I'm using like a larger egg. Oops. These ones are actually my chicken's eggs. And then we're gonna use a teaspoon of vanilla. I'm just gonna use this vanilla bean paste that I got from Sam's Club. We're gonna put in approximately a teaspoon or more. We're gonna whip this up until this is combined. All right, that is nice and fluffy. So when I added the eggs and the vanilla, it took a little bit for them to kind of all emulsify and blend in with the butter and the sugar. I say in total, I probably ended up mixing this to get to this fluffy consistency, maybe about 3 to 5 minutes. We already have our dry ingredients done. So what we're gonna do now is add our wet ingredients to our dry ingredients. So we're gonna do a really quick mix in this. We don't wanna over combine this. Just wanna get it just combined. Now we're gonna add in our raisins. We're gonna use 1 cup of these golden raisins. This has been my goal during this pantry challenge, to use up some of these raisins. Bought like 5 pounds of them, and I'm thinking that that was maybe a little bit too much raisins. So we've been using them a lot lately. We're just gonna fold the raisins in. Now, if you find that your dough is a little bit too dry, you can always add a tablespoon or 2 of milk just to moisten it up a little bit. But we're gonna let this rest for about 15 minutes because it is a freshly milled flour. We wanna give it time to absorb some of that liquid. We're just gonna leave this sit on the counter for about 15 minutes. I'm just wondering if I have enough raisins in here. I think I'm gonna add a touch bit more raisins. Probably add another handful. If you want, you could even add some nuts to this as well. It would be really, really good. Okay, so 15 minutes, let that sit. We will get our bagels done. So we're gonna use a flour that I get from Costco. It's just an organic, unbleached flour. Now the recipe that I'm using for the bagels actually says to use a bread flour. This is the type of flour that I actually use in it. I do not use a bread flour. I've never actually made this recipe with a bread flour, so I have no idea if it would actually turn out any different. Steven is not a huge fan of the freshly milled stuff yet. He is coming along. Little things he will eat, but he's not a super fan of it. So I still make his sourdough with this flour. And when I was using it originally, I did some research because I used to get this central milling flour from Azure Standard, and the price went up a lot. And then after doing a whole bunch of research, I realized that the flour that they sell at Costco, the unbleached organic flour, the all-purpose stuff, it's actually central milling flour. So it's exactly the same stuff that I was getting at Azure Standard for literally a fraction of the price. So that's what we're gonna use in our bagel recipe. Look at this yeast. Look at the bubbly yeast. Perfect. Okay, so we're gonna add 7 cups of flour to this mixer. And I'm doubling this recipe, so that's why I'm using 7 cups. Normally it is 3.5. And then the recipe says 1.5 teaspoons of salt, so we're gonna put in 3 teaspoons of salt. We're gonna give this a little mix, but I am gonna put this lid on first so that flour doesn't fly everywhere. So we're gonna take our water, and we are gonna add our yeast, water, and sugar. Now I did this a little bit different than how the recipe is written. The recipe actually says to only use 1/2 cup of water to bloom your yeast. I just used all of the water, just trying to scrape all of the sugar off the bottom of this. Okay, we're gonna mix this for probably about 5 minutes. If you're doing it by hand, you're gonna mix this or knee it for about 10 minutes. Because we have a pretty powerful mixer, this is probably only gonna take about 5 minutes. We want this dough to get good and stiff. So we're gonna give this a check. It is looking really dry, so I think what I might do is add a little bit more water to this because it is really, really crumbly. I have warm water in here. Turn it on, add a little bit. Probably added like a tablespoon. And this dough hook is actually not working with this. We need to get some different attachments. This is the first time making bagels with this thing. It's a learning curve. Okay, I ended up keeping the dough hooks in here and just taking them out and just readjusting it. So this dough is very, very stiff. And that is perfect. You want it to be like that. So we're gonna take a bowl and we're gonna get some oil put into the bowl. And then we're gonna take this dough and put it in here. And we're gonna let it rise for an hour. I'm just gonna do the last little bit with my hand just to kind of get it into a smooth ball. My hands are just a little wet also from the oil. You can see how stiff this is. Bowl might be too small, probably too small. I'm trying to use the oil from this other bowl. Maybe coat this ball with the oil from here. There we go. Put it in here. And then we are going to cover this for an hour. Time to see if AI actually works and if these cookies turned out. So far the batter is looking good. We've let it rest for the 15 minutes. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to make this whole batch of cookies. I usually never do because it's just Steven and I. He doesn't like raisins, so I'll be the only one eating these. So I'm just going to make a small batch just to test them. And then the rest I'm going to put on these lined baking sheets, and we're just going to put them into the freezer to flash freeze, unbaked. And then that way when I want cookies, I don't have to make a huge big batch. I just can take them out of the freezer, put them on a baking sheet, thaw them a bit, and then cook them. I just turned our oven on to preheat to 350 degrees. So it's going to take a minute to get preheated. So I think we'll maybe make 6 cookies. And I just have my little cookie scoop here. I don't know what size this is. I got this at Goodwill. It says 18/8, but I think that's just talking about the stainless steel. I think maybe this is like a 2 tablespoon scoop. Not sure. And the batter looks brown because we used that coconut sugar in it. We have our 6 cookies. I think we'll just flatten them down just a little bit. There we go. Those are for the oven. Wait for the oven to preheat, and then we will get the rest of these on this cookie sheet and get them in the freezer. I do this with all of my cookies that I make. I always make a really big batch and then put them in the freezer, and then we have them for usually a couple months because we don't eat a lot of cookies. This saves us from having to buy just pre-made cookies because we already have them essentially in the freezer with good healthy ingredients. And I don't really care about spacing on here because we're just flash freezing these, so they don't have to be evenly spaced apart. And I did not do a double batch of these because this is an experiment. We're just seeing if this AI recipe got it right. Because I know that sometimes with AI, it does not get it right. Just to clarify, AI just did not pop this recipe out. I had to give it a lot of direction. Like I had to say, make it with freshly milled flour, no oatmeal, use coconut sugar instead. If you don't have freshly milled flour, you can just ask it to use regular flour. So you do have to kind of give it some direction. You can't just put in, give me a raisin cookie. Well, I guess you could, but I was looking for a very particular recipe. Okay, our oven's preheated. We're going to put these in for about 12 minutes. Depending on your oven, you want to do about 10 to 12 minutes. It says you want to cook them until the edges are set. I would imagine you don't want to cook them until they're toasty because then you'll get a really crunchy cookie. Timer is going to go off in a couple of seconds. So I did a little conversion on the AI site and I asked it if I was using an all-purpose flour for these cookies, how much would I use? And it says instead of using the 1.5 cups of the freshly milled flour, you're actually going to use 1.25 cup of all-purpose flour. You might even get away with just using 1 cup. Try the 1 cup first and see how it is, and then just add the 1/4 cup after. The other thing I asked it is if you're using like a brown sugar stevia mix in this, you're going to just convert the sugar 1 to 1. So we used 1.5 cups of coconut sugar in this, so you're going to use 1.5 cups of stevia mix in your cookies. I tasted a little bit of the batter, and it is amazing. Let's see what these, ooh, I think they're done. So we did 12 minutes. So those definitely look done to me. We are going to leave those sit on the baking sheet for 5 minutes before we touch them. The recipe does state that it will firm up as it sits. So it says do not touch them for 5 minutes. So we'll set a timer for 5 minutes so that I don't say after 2 minutes it's been 5 minutes. So I'm going to leave this recipe typed for you guys in the video description, and then you can just follow along with the video for the steps on how to make it. Okay, we get to move to the next step. So it's rested for a while. So we came and we punched down the dough. This is my favorite part of the whole process, is punching down the dough when it forms into a big ball. And then we're going to let that dough rest for 10 minutes. I did take it out of the bowl and just set it on my counter. So now we need to divide the dough into the equal pieces. So for a standard recipe, you're going to get 8 bagels out of the dough. But because we are doubling this, we're going to get 16 bagels out of this. So I'm going to take this dough and we're going to divide it into 16 equal parts. If you're really, really particular, you can actually weigh the pieces to make sure that you're getting them all the exact same size. But I'm not that picky with it. I usually just eyeball it. Some of these are definitely bigger than others, so we'll have to adjust. Okay, so to get started rolling them into a ball, I like to just kind of crunch them up like this and then put them on a clean counter and then just roll them with the palm of my hand right here and just kind of roll the dough all around. And pinch the bottom. Dough is actually a little bit stiffer than normal. Could have gotten away with using a little bit more water in it. You want them to be a touch bit more stickier than this. So we want to cover these with a damp towel so that they don't dry out. I think they ended up drying out a little bit because I let them rise a little bit longer than I probably should have for the first rise. So we're going to use a damp towel now. We're going to let these sit here for another 10 minutes. I have a pot of water here. I'm going to get this slowly coming up to a boil. And we're also going to get our oven preheated to 425 degrees. So the other thing we have to do is get an egg wash made. I'm just going to wash this egg first. This is one of the eggs from the dairy. So we're going to crack one egg into a small bowl. You can make an egg wash with milk or water. I'm just using water, and I'm going to use probably about a tablespoon of water. And then we're just going to beat the egg and water together, and that's our egg wash. I'm going to make some with a everything bagel seasoning. I have a little bit in here. I have to go and get more from our pantry because there's not very much in here. I make this from scratch. It's so easy to make. So we'll do a topping with some of that. And then this one I actually picked up from Aldi's. These are very, very old. I've had this one for a while. It's an everything bagel seasoning with jalapenos. So we'll do some of those with that. Okay, I think we'll just do plain. We'll do everything bagel and then an everything bagel with jalapeno. We are gonna get these formed and put into some boiling water. So I'm just pressing down on them, just flattening them. And then I'm gonna take my finger and just stick my thumb through and just form a hole. And I usually just like to stretch it like this. And then do that with all of them. I just take my two fingers, just pull it from the center. I like to keep them covered up while I'm working. We'll just plop our bagels in here. I usually like to do 4 at a time. And I'm going to set the timer for 2 minutes. So this stage, you can do 1 or 2 minutes for your bagels in the water. You don't even have to put your bagels in the water if you don't want. You can put them directly on the cookie sheet. This step makes the bagels more chewier. So if you do 1 minute, the bagel is going to be perfect. If you do 2 minutes, I find that it's the texture that we love. It's like a nice chewy bagel. That's kind of what we like. This again is like a New York style bagel. So we're going to do these for 2 minutes per side. So after the 2 minutes, I'm going to come flip them with a slotted spoon and do another 2 minutes on the other side. So you're boiling them for a total of 4 minutes to get the texture that we love. And this is why I only do 4 at a time in this size pot, because they grow. You'll see as soon as I take them out how much they grow. And this is just plain water. There's no salt, no baking soda, nothing in it. So look at how big these bagels get. We'll take them out and put them on the cookie sheet. And then we will get another 4 put into this water. I'm going to turn this water down just a little bit. We're going to take our egg wash and we are going to brush it on top of the bagels. And we'll do a good topping of our bagel seasoning. Stephen likes to have a lot of seasoning on the top of them. He says the ones you buy at the store never have enough seasoning on the top. So I put a lot on mine. Then we'll put the jalapeno ones on this one. I am going to turn this water off because we're going to put this batch in the oven for 25 minutes. Let's get that in right now. Set the timer for 25. I do not want to boil this batch right now because if you put the egg wash on top of them, they tend to get really flat. So you want to make sure that you're doing the egg wash literally right before they go into the oven. So like I said, I just got this turned off. I'll wait until these are almost done. And then once they're almost done, I'll start doing the second batch so that they're ready to go in as soon as these come out of the oven. The timer just went off. Let's check and see. I'm gonna get these put onto the cooling rack. It will be a surprise as to which bagel is which because I don't know which ones have the jalapenos. We both like spice, so it'll be fine. Okay, let these cool down. All right, this is the last batch going in. I'm gonna leave these 5 plain, just so that if I want to have jam with them, then I don't have to have an everything bagel with the jam. So I like to leave a couple of them plain. 25 minutes. We got another project done. Yay. Gonna get some bagels in the freezer, and then tomorrow morning I get to have a sausage and egg bagel. When I just finish a project to get some stuff in the freezer where I don't have to worry about making it, that makes me excited. So we got some bagels in the freezer. Win. So that is gonna be it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give these bagels a try, and definitely give those AI cookies. That's what I'm gonna actually call the recipe, AI raisin cookies, because those actually turned out really, really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and I hope you have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.